Hey everyone, Coach Patrick here, firing things up. Okay, here, refresh or click play on video. Tell everybody who's in the chat room right now what's going on. Coach Patrick here in Endurance Nation. Today is August 18th, 2016. It is late Thursday night, 9 p.m. here, East Coast time, and I am getting ready, supporting the team. Folks who are doing Tremblant this weekend. Coeur d'Alene having been moved last year, change of timing, and so on. So I'm going to dive into those topics tonight. Before I get too far, obviously Endurance Nation, home of the world's largest, fastest online endurance team. You can check us out, create your own free 30-day trial, endurancestation.us. This is not my normal office. For those of you who are tuning in, I'm here in the basement in the kids' playroom, taking over their space. My office is still under construction as I'm trying to unpack stuff. I generally just kind of piled all sorts of stuff in that room. So I'm slowly working my way back to being up to speed there. So thanks for bearing with me. I try to move all of the sort of doll houses and get-ups and all sorts of things behind me. So we're good to go. So with that said, I want to talk about this weekend's racing, and I'm going to talk about 5-10 minutes or so. I know some people are here in the chat room with me tonight, our members. Let's see who we have tonight. Here I got Todd, I got Francis, I got Doug. All right, awesome. Todd, yes, you can totally just fire away a question. Hopefully you can see the video. Let's see here. So first things first, let's talk about Mont Tremblant. I've done both Mont Tremblant and Coeur d'Alene. Mont Tremblant more recently, Coeur d'Alene not since they changed the bike course, and now they've obviously changed the running course as well, the 3 loops. But this weekend, Mont Tremblant looks like it's going to be awesome all week until race day, and then race day is going to be crappy. Not as crappy as, pardon me, the next day, the Monday will be, the day after the race. But it's going to be 100% chance of rain. There'll be some thunderstorms, and it'll be overcast. And on top of that as well, there's going to be high level of humidity. So you kind of have the double punch. I mean, having the actual rain with the humidity mitigates some of the humidity cost, but having the rain on the course, not so much fun, especially when you're dealing with not a super technical course, but technical enough. There's a couple turns, and of course, triathletes don't know how to ride their bikes. And the section up Chemin du Plessis up to Lake Superior, that is fairly technical, especially on the descent. So that could cut into some people's times there as well. So thinking about racing in the cold, you're at a ski resort, so you're up in the mountains there. You want to wear tight-fitting clothing that you can adjust as you get warm or lose warmth. You don't want to wear garbage bags, which is apparently triathlon's favorite rain gear, a giant garbage bag. You don't want to wear clothing that really impedes your ability to operate your bike, like huge bulky gardening gloves or something like that. So what I would recommend, temperatures will be in the 60s to low 70s, which is not bad. I would recommend that you wear arm warmers on the bike. You can easily pull them up, pull them down as you need to. That you wear proper cycling gloves, like fingerless gloves. That's JT there joining us for the chat tonight. Proper cycling gloves, so you can, your hands will stay warmer. They won't be so slippery as you're operating your bike, so you're good in that regard. If you're super worried about getting cold, you can put like a cap. They sell caps that go over your bike helmet, or you can put a cap under your bike helmet to kind of stay warm. If you're ridiculously skinny, like below 10% body fat, then you might want to look into like a cycling vest. Again, it'll block the wind and it keeps snug. It's got pockets. It's a proper cycling vest that you can wear. And that should be all that you need. Maybe toe caps if you're really worried about being cold, but generally that's it. When you're out there handling your bike on the course, you have to remember that you want to watch out for all the painted lines because they'll be slippery, especially if you're turning. You're going to want to watch out for puddles. Big puddles typically have something at the bottom of them. The road up in Mont Tremblant is beautiful and very pristine. I would really only worry about any puddles on bridges. If there's a seam on the bridge, there's like 1 or 2 bridges that you have to kind of watch out for. Otherwise, the road's great, so you should be fine in the puddle department. But most importantly, what the rain does is it kind of adds a level of static noise that intermittently you become aware of. So at the beginning, you'll be overwhelmed by it. then it'll kind of fade away as you start dealing with other stuff, and then it'll come back. And the danger of having that background distraction is that it starts to affect all the other decisions that you're making related to your race. You start thinking about like, well, what's going to happen in this turn? I've got this, this hill coming up. There's a puddle at the bottom of this thing. I think I remember it. What am I going to do? And guess what? You're not eating. You're not drinking. You're not managing your power or your heart rate. You're not approaching the course with 100% of your mental focus. And so when you've got this issue with the rain, you need to be able to adjust to it, account for it, but then get on with the rest of your race. The Ironman doesn't care whether or not you've done all the work you need to do on race day to be ready. It's going to say, look, you're not paying attention. I'm going to throw this slick white line in your way, or you're not paying attention. I'm going to make you miss like 2 feed cycles, and that can come back and haunt you. Speaking of feed cycles, in the rain, people are less likely to eat and drink. And guess what? You're still going just as fast as you want. And so your body needs that fuel. So you don't have the normal cues. So refer to your watch, or I like to, on rainy days, not necessarily look at time, because when you have inclement weather, it changes the time at which you're going to reach that point, or at least the time you estimate you reach that point. But distance is distance. So as a fail safe, you know that I want to be done with a bottle by mile 10 and another bottle by mile 20. So I've got those numbers in the back of my head. So when I see those markers on the road, I know, hey, I should be done with the bottle by now. And I'm not, right? So I get a sense for that. So geographic features as well can be an important component of good nutrition execution when you're out there on the bike. Now, when it transitions to the run, the issue with the rain and the run is just that everything just gets wet. And the worst thing in the world is wet shoes, right? So you want to make sure you've got a good pair of light socks, lightweight socks, not huge, thick wool socks that are just going to soak up the water, but a light pair of socks that are going to allow your foot to contract and expand as it needs to, prevent blisters and so on, and still allow you to put on a snug shoe and get to work. Try not to run through, blatant puddles and stuff like that. But in general, the upside of the run is that A, you survive the bike, right? Like, can't forget that. B, you are not feeling the direct effects of the sun. So you definitely have, higher heat costs from running versus cycling. But if you've done things right, you should be in a pretty good place here on the run. So most of that time you give up on the bike will probably be compensated for with a better run, all things being equal, right? More cautious bike, more bandwidth on the run. So it should net out for you, but you still have to be smart in those early miles. I would recommend a visor or some kind of hat, something to keep the rain out of your eyes. There's just nothing worse than having driving rain just hit you in the face and the eyeballs. It's crazy. So, plan for that. Anyone can throw a visor in their bag. They're fine. Well, you won't need to stay wet or necessarily carry lots of ice. You are going to have to manage your body and keep it happy across the course of the race. And sometimes when you need to eat and drink, but you're not sweating as much, you can get a little bit of backlog in your stomach. So if you get a sloshy gut, you need to take some salt, maybe slow the pace for a minute or two. You need to keep eating and drinking if you're going to keep running. So balance that, walk that line carefully as possible to go through the race. It's a fantastic venue. The fans will still be out in full force, especially downtown where they can easily seek shelter. But first and foremost, be safe. When you have inclement weather like that, you just kind of have to back away from time goals, because sometimes they can, really put you at risk as you're going through stuff. Let me see if you guys have any Tremblant related questions and stuff like that. All right, I see we got Corey's here. Let me let her know. All right. Okay, so she's dialed in. All right, so let's transition a little bit and talk about Ironman Coeur d'Alene. Ironman Coeur d'Alene, almost opposite end of the continent. Last year, rocked the triathlon world with temperatures around 107 degrees. It was so hot, people would not stand at the finish line to cheer folks in. Like you're finishing and your family is like, peace out. I can't be here, Mom, because it's too hot. Dad and the kids are hanging out in the soda shop trying to recover from the punishing heat, which, oh, by the way, you're racing in. This year seems to be the little brother of last year's race. It's still going to be hot. Temperature's going to be in the 90s. You have lower humidity, but that's probably because temperature's so high, humidity's lower. But there's also no cloud cover, and there should be some solid winds. So when you see a weather report like that, the natural reaction is just to be like, why me? Why'd you do this to me? This is terrible. What do I do? Look, Pull yourself together. If I could reach out there and smack you in the face, I'd smack you in the face. First of all, it's not like the heat lamp and the wind lamp is just on you. It's on everybody. Everyone's got to race in the same conditions. Second of all, good news is this means it's not a race about fitness. It's a race about intelligence and execution, for which you are excellently prepared as a member of Endurance Nation. The harder things get, the better you perform relative to the competition. You might not break 6 hours for the bike split you were hoping for, but that 6:15 split backed up by a solid run starts to look really, really good when it puts you in the top 30 in your age group, because everyone else buggered the bike in the run. So the change in weather as just another set of constraints you have to deal with. Okay, it's like saying we've all go to grandmother's house, but my car is broken. We can get all upset about my car being broken, but it's broken, and we still have to get to grandmother's house. How are you going to get to grandmother's house given the fact we don't have a car? How are you going to do your Ironman given the fact that it's going to be hot and windy? These are not challenges for which you are totally unprepared or have never seen before. They're simply challenges which you have to think ahead, create a plan, and then execute against that plan moving forward. If anything, knowing ahead of time that the weather is going to be bad gives you an opportunity to craft a plan and then dial it down or up accordingly as you go through the day. That's fine, and it's a million times better than being out there on the race course and then all of a sudden like dark cloud of death comes over and just drops hail on you, and you are never ready for that. You're not dressed for it. You didn't know it was coming, and it's just boogered everything. You know it's coming. You know you need to prepare. So the way the Ironman Coeur d'Alene course works out, it's a 2-loop swim in Lake Coeur d'Alene, massive lake, beautiful, beautiful lake, but it's so big that it often has what feels like a current, and it's typically pushing towards the beach because you're at one end of the lake. The winds will be coming from the south-southwest. As such, there will be some wind coming that way as well. So you're going to feel like swimming out to the turn buoys really hard. That's a pain. That's tough. But the good news is swimming back is going to be a lot easier. It's going to take you 5 minutes extra to get out, but you're going to swim 5 minutes faster on the way back. So the net is, it's all going to work out. It's just a change in the perspective. Don't get too spun up about what your watch says at the turnaround out in the middle of Lake Coeur d'Alene, because you're going to get it back either way. The one thing I want to point out about the swim, it's a north-south swim, so the sun will be rising on your left-hand side on the way out, on your right-hand side on the way back. That's fine, generally speaking. People don't have a problem with the sun on the breathing side, but you do turn directly into the sun at the end of each lap out there in the lake, and that is challenging. It's hard to find that turn buoy. So when you're out there in the practice swims, just look around, make sure you can find that turn buoy. There's a landmark, there's a flag pole, you'll see a hotel behind it, figure out what part of the hotel you're going to sight off of so you can keep going in the right direction. There's nothing worse than hitting a turn buoy and underturning and still staying too long, or overturning and cutting in and having to come back out again. You can easily offset that with a good practice swim, or because the point is right there in the park, you can walk out and just kind of reverse sight it, kind of look out at the buoys and line them up and turn around and look and see like, okay, what do I see on the other side of me? Kind of do some strategic mathematics there and line it up, and you should be good to go. So the bike course is essentially a glorified gigantic out and back. It's got enough elevation gain to keep you honest, but because the course runs mostly north-south, you're going to have a headwind out and a tailwind back. So you have to deal with the fact that there's going to be some parts of your bike that are just slower than you want, and some parts that are faster than you ever could have imagined. Again, at the end of the day, it all nets out. What changes with a hilly course in the wind and the heat, however, is that when the bike starts going up a hill, you start riding up a hill, you slow down, you no longer have the effect of the wind cooling you, and so it starts to feel really hot. In fact, if you have a tailwind behind you and you're going down the road and you're going up a hill, it feels twice as hot, because now you don't even have the wind blowing on your skin, it's just kind of coming on your back. And so you have to be very mindful of the cost of climbing. Even within the right power zone, should you have a power meter, and should you know your zones, and then should you commit to riding your zones on that power meter on race day. 3 important steps that many people don't follow. You're going to notice that your heart rate's higher than normal simply because it's hotter. So have an extra cage available on your bike to hold a water bottle, where you can go through an aid station, grab a cold water bottle, put it down there. Every time you see the road go up, you're about to start that hill, pop out that bottle, wet your arms down, you get your arm coolers on and wet your arms, maybe a little bit on your back, a little down on your femoral artery. You probably get 3 or 4 of those out of a bottle, quick squirts, just enough to keep you wet, keep you cool as you're climbing those hills. As long as those arm warmers are wet, they will serve to cool you as the wind passes over their surface. So you have to keep them wet. You have to keep managing that. you need to eat and drink. A natural reaction is to go right away from the fluids early because you're dealing with the racing thing, to come back with the fluids later when you're super hot and you're like, I'm just getting all this data that I need to eat and drink. The downside of that is that early on, you're not riding that hard per endurance nation protocol. So you have plenty of time to get started on your fluids, if not catch up from what you lost from the swim. On a hot day, you often need to drink more in that first hour than you normally do. I drink 2 bottles an hour, typically on the bike. On a hot day, I do 3 in that first hour. Then I start to dial it back towards 2. So you're probably going to need to do something along those same lines. You don't have the time to not drink on this course on this day. Any missed opportunity to drink or get new fluids, cold fluids are more palatable than warm ones, so you want to drink them. Any opportunity you miss to do that is simply going to set you back later on in the day. A marathon is a marathon, and you can't hide if you've done poor nutrition on the bike. So get on that system and stay constant with the eating and the drinking. You can eat and drink a lot more when you're riding, even in the heat, because it's not a weight-bearing exercise, and your stomach's not being jarred around. Now, when you transition to the run, that's another story. You all of a sudden get super hot. So you got to make sure you're soaking wet at each aid station on the run, trying to keep the feet as dry as possible. Like bend over and pour the water on yourself. Running through sprinklers, that's up to you. If you know you get blisters, that may not be the way you want to go. But it is a 3-loop run, and that means you never get too far from the mojo of downtown, which you're going to need. Hopefully people stay outside this year because it's going to be hot. So pace yourself accordingly. The most important part of the run is the first out and back on it, the first 6 miles, where you keep your heart rate at the same level of what it was on the bike before you start to build it up safely on the run. Your speed will be fine. The key thing we're trying to do here is slow down the heart rate to get it under control, reorient it coming off the bike so that you can then run and build that heart rate all day. If you start out too high, you simply have nowhere to go. That heart rate's going to continue on, especially if you do it for too long, at a high level, at which point it's eventually going to crash. It's going to make you walk. Your body cannot function keeping you cool and having you run at high paces. If you've overachieved anywhere from an effort perspective, it will come back and get you. Now remember, when you're eating and drinking out there on hot days, you have to deal with your gut as well. So having external salt, the opportunity to pop an extra salt pill or 2 to help get the water out of your stomach, that sloshy stomach, is important. Having some Coke or switching to broth, simply changing the game in terms of what the taste in your mouth from the normal Gatorade, can be helpful, as it keeps you, on point, keeps the blood sugar up, and it keeps you generally happy as an athlete. Okay. All in all, it can be really, really challenging for you to manage all of the noise around the inclement weather. But the good news is that it really focuses you as well. And I found that athletes who are able to accept the constraints of the conditions in which they are racing and adapt to meet those conditions first, because on a priority level, you sort of had goals around pace and power and time. Now, all of that's off the table as we have this heat problem to deal with. We got to solve that heat problem first. If you can solve that heat problem, by default, you are doing a pace and an effort at a heart rate that you can sustain all day. And by solving that heat problem first, you're setting yourself up for a fantastic day. Contrast that with athletes who say, well, I see it's going to be crazy hot today, but I really swore that I was going to have a personal best. So I'm just going to go as hard as I can, even though I know that the surface of the sun is right behind me and I'm going to melt and probably blow up. But, like a knight on a vain quest, they set forth knowing that they're probably going to blow up, and they quite often do. If someone goes blowing by you on a hot day and they stay out there, fantastic. There's just, they've earned the right to go that fast. Maybe they're acclimated, maybe they're crazy, maybe they're a robot, who knows? But you can only do the best that you can. So have the right conversations with yourself and don't get distracted by the conditions. Instead, use them to your advantage. All right. Who's got questions out there? I can see we've got Laura Becker in the house. We got Brian Davis. Nice to see you guys. Mark's in the house. Mark, I appreciate you coming here instead of just going to drink beers tonight. I wish I was with you in Coeur d'Alene drinking beers tonight. But I know some of you may indeed have race questions, and if you do, I'm happy to answer them now. I'll be here for about another 10 minutes if the questions come in. I'm trying to think of other things that come up. For those of you who are history buffs, Ironman Coeur d'Alene 2007 was where Endurance Nation was founded there at Calypso Coffee. over some strong coffee, interspersed with some training and some beers, as we sort of hatched what we thought Endurance Nation would be. Laura Becker giving a shout out to the racers. Laura, thank you so much. Laura knows a thing or two about inclement weather racing, having suffered in Lake Placid, but gutted it out, literally gutted it out. Get it? All right, here, let's see. Good question here from Todd. Todd asks, in general, what did you do fluid-wise in Kona? He asked me if I did more fluids. It's hard to read what you just said there. More first? Yes. So generally speaking, Kona is an outlier for a couple reasons, very quickly. Number one is the heat is going to be there no matter what. So it's not like an if-then question, it's just how much. So you know later in the day, the heat is going to be there. Okay. Number two, you know that the bike course, it's a big out and back basically on the Queen K. You know that the bike course is faster out than it is back. So you are highly incentivized as an age grouper to get out to Javi in the turnaround as quickly as possible. So you have to balance out fluid drinking in the context of understanding that you sort of have to break endurance nation protocols to get that stuff in. But most importantly, and above all else, you know how hot, how miserably hot it's going to be on that run. And if you are behind the gun or you're dehydrated coming off the bike, your day is practically done because you're simply not going to be able to keep your heart rate down in those conditions. So yes, in Kona, I normally drink 2 bottles. I went 3 bottles in that first hour. And I probably drank somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 bottles, maybe for the first 2 hours as I kind of got caught up. Somewhere along the way, it's hard to tell how much I'm drinking. But I was alternating with water from my body and then drinking from the Gatorade Endurance. I have a speed fill bottle in the front that I could drink out of. And so I was really making sure I was going through those. So in the first hour, I was trying to drink that bottle every 20 minutes. And so what that does is it allows you to regain the fluids you lost in the swim. Don't forget, Ironman Hawaii, 1 loop ocean swim, no wetsuit. So that's very costly in and of itself. Probably having the water an extra 4 to 8 minutes longer than you anticipate, which every extra minute is a lot. And so you're trying to basically set yourself up for success. And so you'll see a lot of people who perform well on the bike, but really struggle on the run because they're focused on, performance from an effort perspective versus a nutrition perspective. And when the conditions get as tough as they are in Kona, it's all about the nutrition. All right. You may find as well that your tried and true nutrition may not work so well when you've upped the fluids. If you have to start adding tons of water because your custom formula is not working, you got to add some salt to that equation to make sure the water doesn't stay inert in your gut. So lots of sort of nuances you have to go through. Todd, fire away. Dude, all questions are welcome. He's asking if he can ask a training question. Go for it. No one else is asking questions. I may just tap out and make Doug Johnson answer all the questions. What's up? All right. So when I think about, I want to talk about some other stuff. I think we just wrote about this the other day for the team, but I think another element that's really, really important, it can come up in these hot races, is people feel sort of helpless. When the reason why people feel more helpless in hot races is that the fluid is just kind of being sucked out of them. Yet they still have these performance parameters within which they're operating. And so people rapidly get dehydrated. They're quickly disoriented. They're struggling with the heat. They can feel the heat. It's really upsetting their stomach. It's easy to get distracted or even emotional about what's happening. You need to be as rational as possible. Think about having a split personality where you can have your pity party for like 90 seconds. But after that, let's get back to figuring out how we're going to fix this thing, because we got to fix this thing with only what we have on hand. So I recommend that you have external salt pills so you can easily take salt. I also use Gator Lights as like an emergency tool. Those are little packets of salt. I don't have any down here, but they're very powerful as well to have direct sort of mainline salt, not that different from what base salt is. To get it on your tongue, which more often than not will send a signal to your brain that you're going to be getting salt even before it gets to your stomach, which some folks feel like actually begins to mitigate the issue more quickly. That can help you as you're drinking excess fluids for sure. All right. Todd says, I did 18 miles today, but I only have time to ride along tomorrow, then on call. So Saturday and Sunday rides are on the trainer. Thoughts as I'm 3 weeks out from Wisconsin. I would ride along tomorrow. but I would dial it back. Like you've got you're 3 weeks out, so typically you have a decent ride this weekend. I would ride long I would ride long tomorrow, but I would cut the expectations way back. Like the first 90 minutes to 2 hours, I would just kind of stretch it out and be good. And then I would focus on negative splitting that effort. Maybe starting to creep into some more race specific work in the latter half. Essentially negative splitting the bike by making the front end of it so easy. You know, being able to ride on tired legs is a skill. It's an opportunity for you to get better at flattening the course and pacing yourself, but the nutrition is going to have to be your A game. And then this weekend, you know, you could easily do your ABP ride or whatever it takes. You know, you could do an hour and a half trainer ride each day and a short run off of both bikes. That's fine. That's a bunch of cycling in a week, and good cycling at that, and some frequent running as well. That should all be good. All right. Corey says, Coeur d'Alene peeps, Corey has 15 Gatorade packs if anyone wants one. They only cost $9 gajillion. Corey, I recommend that you take those Gatorade packs, get some electrical tape, each underneath the aero bars on my bike. I had them for like 2 years in there, but I put them under there because if the shit hits the fan on the bike and I need to add extra salt to a bottle on the bike course, I know it's not like it's going to fall out of my pocket. I've got some on my bike that I can just rip off, and I could stop, rip it off, and dump it in a bottle and start drinking that bottle as I go and save my day. That's you know, they only weigh like 3 ounces. That's an easy thing to put on your bike just for safety's sake. I mainly use those for the run, especially when I start to feel my stomach go. I'll dump like a whole one in a cup of Coke or something and just choke that bad boy down with all the sodium. It tastes so bad going down, but it's going to turn the corner for you pretty quick. Okay. Doug says, I'll be at Mont Tremblant next year. Okay, I will warn the Canadians you are coming. How would you compare the Mont Tremblant course to Lake Placid? Great question, Doug. The Mont Tremblant course is like, all of Mont Tremblant is like Lake Placid, but 20 years newer. The roads are better, faster. The venue's adorable and fun and compact, and everybody enjoys it. I would say basically when Tremblant was made versus Lake Placid, they basically took a bunch of the hills away and just sort of concentrated them in that one end of the bike course. So you climb a little bit out of town, but it's fairly fast. Very fast on 114. There's just one hill out there. That 114 comes up into the village of Saint Jovite. It's also fast through there. You climb back into town, not so bad. And then you've got this climbing section for Lake Superior, and that's where it's 13-14%. But you know, even though it takes 32 minutes to get up that thing, it takes 14 minutes to come down. It's it ends up being 15 miles, and it takes you 46 minutes. You're totally fine. So I think the bike course is really fair. The run course is beautiful. So I think on paper, the Mont Tremblant course is about 10 to 15 minutes faster than Lake Placid if you do it well. And I think it's a fantastic venue. A little more expensive than because you're in a resort town. You have a resort tax, but outstanding and beautiful. All right. Corey says, how does practice swim at CDA work? Just go out and swim wherever? No buoy set up. The buoys will be set up. They'll probably start putting them in tomorrow. They usually put 1 or 2 out. I think the official practice swim is like on Saturday, but you can get out there and just get in the water. It's worthwhile getting in the water, seeing the temperature, just jump in on the beach at the very least. And you can go check out the buoys, tomorrow or whatever you need to do like that. All right. Todd says, good luck. I love CDA. I know Todd loves CDA, man. It was good to see you out there back in the day. Todd was with us back in the day. All right. Stay hydrated. Laura's going to be at Tremblant too. That sounds like trouble. Endurance Nation in the house next year. Everybody doing Tremblant this year, you've been warned. Enjoy it this year because next year Endurance Nation's in the house. All right, kids, it is 9:30. I can hear my kids running around upstairs. They should be asleep. So I'm going to turn off the dial here on another coach chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. I super appreciate it. If you do have other questions about Tremblant or CDA, you can obviously find us on social media. Those of you not on the team, if you are on the team, reach out to me. You have the chat button on the site. You can find my phone number under my account /staff. Here to help you guys out, whatever you need to get you through this race and make sure you're 100%. You've done a lot of great work. You are so much more prepared than the average competitor out there. The test remains, can you put together a race given these new conditions? But I think you have the information and the support and the wherewithal to do it. I look forward to cheering you on as you go. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Next Coach Chat online, or you'll hear me cheering for you at the races. See you guys.